Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Sade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hello and welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I am your host, Sade Curry, and it has been a minute since I recorded a podcast episode. And really the reason was a few life transitions, but also wanting to apply my learnings from over 6 years of helping women who are divorced, helping women who are dating after divorce, helping women who want to really create an extraordinary life after divorce. And I spent some time this year thinking about the difference between the women who come to me, work with me either on changing their careers, making more money, meeting a new partner after divorce, and who within, 4 to 6 months, 9 months, get all of the results that they want. And then some of the women who, are a little more tentative. They're a little more worried that they won't get the results in the program, or they come into the program and, we have to go deeper than they expected. We have to do deeper work than expected. And also some of you who are listening to this podcast who have used the principles on this podcast and haven't gotten the results you wanted, because many women write into me and say, I met a partner and all I did was listen to your podcast. And here's a picture of the guy. And I love those. I'm so delighted when I get those. And so I've just taken working with hundreds of women. I looked at my consultation applications. I have looked at my client session transcripts, so many hours of coaching there. I looked at my consultation recordings and really wanted to see what is the difference? What are some of the deeper things that women need to know so that they can get the life that they want after divorce? And so I've taken the time, really the last 3 months or so to really think about that. And one of the things that has come up, that when people work with me one-on-one, it's really easy for me to identify this when a woman works with me one-on-one. When a woman just does a consultation and doesn't work with me, or I read a post and I respond to it, it's really hard for me to identify if they have this issue or not. And the issue is whether or not they are centering themselves in their dating journey. And to center yourself is to make your own wants and your own desires and your own vision the North Star for the actions that you take, for the plans that you make, for the actions that you take, for the decisions that you make along the way. Women who do not center themselves tend not to get results. And the reason is that they are constantly looking outside and trying to navigate the world based on other people's desires, other people's wants, based on other people's judgments and other people's opinions. I had an advantage in this area because literally the day after I separated from my ex-husband, I went into recovery and coaching and healing from codependency and people pleasing. And I was really blessed just as I started Googling what is going on with this marriage and with this divorce. I ran across an interview with a woman talking about her own experience with codependency and her own experience being in a narcissistically abusive relationship. And I just heard the word codependency for the first time. And I jumped right into healing from that. Like when I say intense healing from being a people pleaser, from being codependent. And so by the time I was dating years later, I had healed from centering other people in my life. I had broken that habit. I had broken those patterns of thinking, and it served me so well when I was dating. So when I started dating, all I really needed to do was practice what I had learned in letting go of patterns of people pleasing. I just had to practice it in dating. I made some mistakes, but my dating journey went a lot smoother. And looking back now, I realized, oh, of course, I had this thing that I brought into dating with me that some of you haven't brought with you. Some of you haven't been through that intense healing from people pleasing, or even understand that you need that. And so you might struggle some more with dating than other people would struggle. So I'll talk about what it looked like for me before I learned to center myself in my own life. From a very early age, from my family of origin, the religion that I was brought up in, the society I was brought up in, and this is the same for many of you. If you identify as a woman, if you were raised as a woman, programmed as a woman, like I was, you were conditioned to make decisions, take actions based on what people around you would think and what they would feel and what they needed. And this happens from a really, really, really young age. It's sort of like this is the air we breathe. This is the water that we're swimming in. And you know how a fish doesn't know what water is because it's just in water all the time? We are in that water where as women, we are raised to make sure everyone around us is happy. And so we are conditioned and programmed to anticipate. And this is where the real danger comes in. We're raised to anticipate what other people are going to think, what they're going to feel, and then make decisions based on that. If you lived in earlier times and even in some times today, or some situations today, and you fail to properly anticipate what others are going to think of you or what others are going to think of an action that you take or the way that you dress, it could be really dangerous as a woman. If you wore the wrong thing, if you said the wrong thing, you could be harmed. If you expressed something you were thinking that someone else did not approve of, you could be physically harmed. You could be emotionally harmed. And so from a very, very young age, we are programmed to anticipate safety. And then if you happen to grow up with in a family of origin that has other issues compounded that makes what society is already doing harder, then you have that. Then if you grow up in a religion that tells you as a woman, you need to do all these things and be all these things and dress in this way to be safe, then it makes it even harder. So because our brain has practiced for so many years anticipating what others are going to think or feel or say or act based on what we do, we actually are using very, very little of our own thinking and feeling to consider what we want. In fact, for many of us, what we want is to be able to correctly anticipate. This is so messed up. Our desires and our wants are so programmed to be what correctly anticipates what other people want. And that's where the real danger comes in. And I know this from working with women when I ask them, well, what do you want in a partner? And they give me this list. And most of you, 99% of you listening to this would look at that list and say, well, what's wrong with that list? That list is great. She wants a man who's ambitious. She wants a man who makes good money. She wants a man who is this tall. She wants a man who does this, who does that. Some of those things for some people are based on what we have been programmed to think that society would approve of in a relationship for us. And so this is so messed up. We have this list for a partner that looks like a nice list. There's nothing bad on the list, but it's not based on what you as an individual would really want, would really thrive in. It's based on what your friends would look at and approve of. And trust me, I have talked to so many women. I had one client and we were working on her swiping. We were looking at the people that were showing up on the app and she was, seeing really great guys and things like that. There was one guy who looked very compatible with her just from the way he showed up, his hobbies, his lifestyle. He was very interested. Her comment was that her friends would not think he looked cute. Do you wonder exactly how divorced women just like you are meeting eligible men who want a real relationship and a commitment? They're doing it by dating with their core values. Your core values are the GPS that lead you to the partner you've been looking for. When you use your core values on dating apps, text messages, and at social events, you will easily connect with your true match partner without chasing, settling, or wasting time with non-committal men. I have taught exactly how to do this in the 2-hour Core Values Dating Blueprint course available on my website, sadecurry.com/dating. That's SADECURRY.com/dating. You will learn exactly how to identify your core values and use them on your dating profile, how to ask the right questions via text, and how to tell the right stories on dates so that you attract the right people and repel those who aren't right for you. If you're ready to meet your true match, hop over to sadecurry.com/dating or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode. Because her friends would not think this man looked cute, this woman was willing to forego having her real needs met in a relationship. Now, I don't know if that guy would have turned out to be everything she wanted or not. We hadn't even gotten to the first date. And this is where many of you are missing out on good men. You wonder where other people are finding the good men and why you can't seem to find any. It's possibly because you have these very deeply programmed subconscious beliefs, subconscious anxieties around what other people are going to think about whatever situation you get into, whatever relationship you get into, how you're supposed to get into the relationship, what the relationship is supposed to look like, how the relationship is supposed to feel. Many women, a large percentage of women are not in touch with their own true desires, their own true wants, their own true needs, because their needs, their desires, their wants have been programmed by society, by religion, by parents, by families of origin, by other people. This happens to men too, but it really doesn't happen at the same level. Men are programmed to be whatever they want to be as long as they're successful at it. So if you're successful at whatever it is you choose, you're allowed to be a person who does that. So a man is allowed to be a bachelor and single forever and never get married as long as he's successful at making money, right? A man is allowed to be a marine biologist as long as he is the best marine biologist and he makes good money or is successful at it. A man is allowed to be a doll maker as long as he's successful at it. So they are programmed differently, which gives them more options for expressing themselves and more options for being in touch with what they want. The only caveat for men is that they be successful at whatever it is they choose. So a man is allowed to marry a woman who is not cute, quote unquote. His friends won't really dig him or mess with him if his wife isn't quote unquote cute according to the whatever the beauty standards are, as long as he's successful in the areas that society deems that he needs to be successful at. A man is allowed to marry a woman who's taller than him as long as he has a lot of money. All of these rules that are in place for women are not in place for men in the same way. And myself, and if you were socialized and raised as a woman, you probably have these, but they may have gone unexamined and you may not realize how they're affecting you. And the way it ends up affecting you in your post-divorce journey to create an extraordinary life, in your dating journey, is that if you haven't done this work, everything you're thinking and everything you're planning to do and your actions may all be orchestrated to ensure that someone thinks positively of you or to avoid someone thinking badly of you. So they're kind of the same thing. I don't want them to think badly of me. I don't want them to look down on me. And I do want them to think positively of me. And if your plans and actions and the way you do things is based on that, then the real you is not showing up. The real you is not getting her needs met. The real you is not centered in your efforts, in your resources, in your energy, in your time, in where your attention goes. You are not centered in your life. I'll give you a few really minor examples before we get to like the bigger dating examples. So if you're a mom and you're cooking a meal, or you were married and you were cooking a meal, as women, we rarely wake up and say, you know what, I really feel like eating, I don't know, Thai fried rice today. Examples, one of my favorite meals. What we usually are thinking is, okay, I want to make a meal today. What do my kids like? What do they not like? What will they eat? What will they not eat? What does my partner like? What does my partner not like? And then we juggle those variables to figure out the meal we're going to have, or where we're going to go out to eat, or take out, or groceries, whatever it is. We do this for so long that the time that we needed to figure out what we like to eat, what we want to eat, goes, we don't put any energy into that because we are not centered in those efforts. Your efforts to feed your family are centered around your family and not centered around you. There's no room in that conversation for what you want to eat. And then when you think about that 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, I guess you could say your mealtime expression, your expressions around food, it might be less expansive than it could be for you. Now, for your family, it might be great because you spent all the time and effort figuring all that out for them, taking their needs into consideration, making sure their needs were met. But if you're constantly anticipating other people's needs, you won't have enough energy, 1, to anticipate your needs, 2, to explore your needs, 3, to put meeting your needs into action. And so this is why we end up in this state where we just feel numb. We don't feel joy. Life doesn't feel enjoyable. As women, we end up feeling like we're just in this grind of like work and chores and kids and partners. This is a very, very tiny example, but it really illustrates the principle I'm trying to pass across. It can show up in how we get dressed. We're going to an event. So you're thinking about what's appropriate for the type of event. Then you're thinking about what people will like and what people will admire. And if you've been in some certain kinds of marriages, your partner if he's a controlling kind of person, might have had something to say about that. And over time, in anticipating all of these things, you don't even know how you want to dress because your mother had something to say about the clothes that you wore. The kids at school had something to say about the clothes that you wore. Your boyfriends had something to say about your clothes, then your ex-husband. And if you don't take the time to center yourself in your clothing life, which the fact that we women have to even think about this is infuriating because men don't have to think about that. Men think about, what do I like to wear? And then they wear that. And then they add on maybe what's appropriate for the event that they're going to. But being socialized as a woman, there's so many demands on us, so many voices coming at us. And we are programmed to feel unsafe if we do not take all of those opinions into consideration. Now, what I want you to start to do as you listen to this podcast episode is to consider whether or not you are centered in your life, whether you are centered in the use of your time, whether you are centered in the use of your money, whether you are centered in the use of your brain, whether you are centered in the decisions that you make. I really want you to cultivate the practice of focusing your own attention on yourself. For many of you, this will feel very uncomfortable. The fact that you're thinking about yourself rather than thinking about other people can be very, very uncomfortable. You're thinking about all the times that you were cautioned not to be selfish, to think of others. Well, sis, you are an other. And it is time for you to center yourself in your own life, in the use of your efforts and your time, to center yourself in the things that you are building so that you can have a life that is rich and full and expansive. For some of you, even centering yourself in your own thoughts, focusing your attention on your own wants and needs, just doing that might trigger anxiety, because underlying that practice will be the fact that you are considering things that you know will potentially disappoint other people. And you may have pushed those things down and pushed them down and pushed them down. And so as you start to let them come up, it might trigger some anxiety. So I want you to prepare to feel some very uncomfortable feelings as you do this. Prepare for this not to be an easy, inspiring, walk in the park kind of exercise. When those uncomfortable feelings come up, what you want to do is learn how to process them, learn how to move through them, learn how to let them go, learn how to talk to yourself, which that's a whole other topic that we'll talk about on another day. Or if that is something you need help with, you can always reach out to me with a consultation call to talk about processing emotions. And as you move through those emotions, as you center yourself, focus your needs and wants on yourself, process the emotions that come up, then courage will start to form. You'll start to have the courage to take steps towards the life that you want. You'll start to get past the fear that those negative emotions will overwhelm you. You'll start to get past the thought that doing what other people want in a way that is pleasing to other people is the total use of your life. And you will be able to start taking real action towards your own desires, towards making an impact, towards deepening your relationships, towards finding love and companionship, towards making the money that you want. So let's apply this to your dating journey. I see women centering others' thoughts, centering what men want at every step of the dating journey. Almost every question I answer for women has to do with the fact that they are centering the other person or men or their family or other people in their dating journey. Let's just start with even the question, is it okay for me to date with children? That immediately tells me that this woman has a desire to date. Like, if you don't want something, you're not thinking about it. It doesn't even come up, right? I don't think about motorcycles much. You know why? I have no desire to ever ride a motorcycle myself or with other people or whatever. And so I don't think about motorcycles. Unless a motorcycle like drives by me and then I have to be careful to make sure I'm, being safe on the roads, I do not think about them at all. So when a woman comes to me and asks me, I have kids, is it okay for me to date? That's a very legitimate question, and I'm happy to coach her, but I don't just tell her yes, because the yes answer is the surface level answer. As a coach, I want to go deeper to bring up the things that are creating the question so that the woman I'm working with can get healing on a deeper level, so that her life can shift and change and expand, not just by me answering the surface level question, but by going deeper into the deep need and the deep fears and anxieties and worries that are bringing up that question. For some women, the deeper question they're asking is, how do I keep myself and my children safe when I date? Like, they've already decided they're going to date, but they don't know how to keep them safe. So that's usually the deeper question. Then for some other women, they have heard things like, you should just focus on your kids and you don't need to be bringing any men into these kids' lives, or whatever critical voices have been around them. And the question they are asking is, how do I center my own desires? How do I live my own life while also caring for my kids? Because at this point, meeting their own needs for companionship and love has been framed as being at odds with meeting their children's needs. And so that's just one question. I can give you 50 of these that come up around how society frames a woman meeting her own needs as being in opposition to other people being safe and other people being healthy and other people getting what they need. nobody is going to come and help you center yourself in your life, because almost everyone around you benefits by you centering them in your life. And that's nobody's fault right at this point. That's just the way the human race has designed our societies. And so as the woman, you have to decide that you are going to center yourself in your own life. Centering yourself in your own life does not mean that the people around you have to suffer. In fact, the true needs of the people in your life, their true needs get met when you center yourself. One of the examples was when I started dating, my kids were teenagers and they were kind of on their way out. So I think it would have been legit if I said, you know what, I'm not going to date until my kids are off to college and I'm alone at home. And to me, that didn't make any sense, because I was like, well, I don't know that I'll find a partner for several years. I really thought it would take me about 5 years to find a partner. It took me a lot less. It took me about 18 months. And so I was like, but I want to go out there and I want to date and I want to practice dating and I want to practice more healthy patterns of relating with men. And I think if that's a need of mine, because I wasn't a people pleaser anymore, I felt like that was a need of mine that I wanted to take care of. So I decided to date. And what I did was I just put guardrails in place. And I was like, okay, unless I'm going to marry a man, he's just not going to meet my kids. And that's just the way it is, right? Now, in that way, I centered my need to date. And I also considered my children's needs to be safe and not have, random people coming in and out, breakups, all of that stuff. And so nobody I dated before my husband, my current husband, ever met my kids. They didn't meet my kids, and it's just the way it was. Even the ones who wanted to. Now, isn't this fun? Those who did want to meet my kids, I decentered their desire to meet my kids to accommodate my desire to date and not have my kids meet anyone. And so it was all what I wanted, not what other people wanted. And that turned out to be the best thing for me, because I met my husband 18 months in. And I don't know what other parallel lives we could have been leading if I didn't date. But I feel like it also turned out to be the best thing for my kids, because they actually got those last 2 years of high school with me being married to my husband. They got to live at home with a really good guy who they've just gotten closer to him as the years have gone by. Like my daughter recently graduated from college, and, her last 2 years, she had some intense work, like intense creative work to do with literature and all kinds of fun things that I am not an filmmaking. Yes, that's the other thing. Film. And I am married to a man who will watch all of the credits on a show. Like, he knows all the people. And what a gift that she had a stepdad who could sit with her and watch all of the old movies and talk to her about filmmaking and refer her to people that I would otherwise have never known. So in many ways, I think it was a gift that I did date while my kids were still home. But that's not for everyone, right? That's not everyone's journey. The question is, whatever your choice is your choice based on you and your deepest desires, or is it based on what you think people are going to think? Is it based on what you think your children are going to think? Is it based on how you think things are going to look? And that is what I really want to call into question today. I'll give you one more example. When women are going on dates, or when they are in conversation on the apps or with a man, they often tell me, well, he asked this, and so I answered. But they felt uncomfortable answering that question. They didn't want to answer the question, but they center the man's feelings around his desire for that question to be answered above their feeling uncomfortable with answering the question. This is something I talk to my clients a lot about. Like we do a lot of scripting because so many of them are still people pleasers. And so questions that make them feel uncomfortable feel like a minefield. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to say no to a man when he asks them a question they don't want to answer. So we do a lot of those, like, okay, role playing. When he asks you this, what are things you don't want to answer? If he does ask you a question that you don't want to answer, how are you going to say no in a way that resonates with you? And so I'm constantly working with my clients to frame things in a way that resonates with them. Whereas before they came to work with me, they just used to stumble through those situations. And many of those uncomfortable situations would cause them to not date or to avoid dating altogether, or to give TMI, or to reveal information they weren't comfortable revealing. Just whole mess, all kinds of messes. But the deeper principle that I constantly teach my clients, that I'm constantly helping them practice, is centering themselves in the situation. Because there's so many situations where other people are going to want something from you. And I can't script every situation for a client. So this concept of centering themselves, dating with their core values, dating with their deepest desires, understanding themselves really, really, really well, to the point that in the moment, even if, they didn't get to ask me this question, in the moment, they are so connected to what they want. They are so connected to what makes them feel safe, that they know exactly how to say yes, how to say no thank you, how to walk away from anything that is not right for them. And so this principle of centering yourself goes hand in hand with retraining your intuition, reconnecting with your intuition. It goes hand in hand with your self-discovery. It goes hand in hand with your core values. And it is the key to getting the life you want versus getting the life you think you want. But then when you get it, you realize you actually didn't want it, or it didn't work out, or it wasn't what you thought it was. Being so deeply connected to yourself, valuing yourself so highly that you center yourself in your own life, that is the beginning of creating the life you want. That is the beginning of creating an extraordinary life after your divorce. That is the beginning of creating an extraordinary relationship, a healthy relationship that lasts a lifetime after divorce. Now, if this resonated with you, I want to invite you to schedule a consultation call with me. Let's talk about how I can help you date after divorce and get a healthy relationship that you want. I have 2 programs where you can work with me. I have a group program. It's a membership, and I also work one-on-one with clients. So if you go to the show notes, you can click on the link and schedule a complimentary consultation call, or just go to sadecurry.com/schedule-appointment. That's spelled SADECurry.com/schedule-appointment. Thank you so much for your time and attention today, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to SadeCurry.com to get started. That's SADECURRY.com. I'll see you inside.